about, representative democracy, even with all of its flaws, as potentially.
I just feel like we could do better if we really wanted to do expertise plus voting. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I feel like somehow
Well,
restricting your options.
So here are some ways that I've been working on that you might be able to do a little bit better on some of these things. So one thing is, can we use money in a more intelligent way than VCG does? Well, VCG is a total mess, but imagine we do want to incorporate some cardinality. Now, what if we tried to do something that was more like the first price auction, or like an expected externality mechanism that we talked about before, which isn't so sensitive to collusion and doesn't require burning the money? So one idea is, imagine people could buy votes. So you go into the ballot box, and you say, I want to have 10 votes, and you have to write a check for $10 at that point, right? Well, then people who really cared would buy a lot of votes. People who didn't care wouldn't buy so many votes, right? Now, in particular, imagine that the first vote cost you $1, the second vote cost you $2, the third vote cost you $3, and so forth. The reason why that would be a useful system is it's going to mimic the expected externality mechanism, because think about it. If I've already bought 2 votes, that additional vote I get causes me to win marginally in exactly the case when there are 3 votes in the opposite direction, right? And so that's a case where sort of society values things 3 units in the opposite direction. So to win that chance, I should have to pay $3, because that's sort of the size of the externality that I'm imposing, right? And this system doesn't run into the problems that VCG has. So this is something that I'm working on. Not necessarily saying this should be used in real elections, because people don't want the rich to be able to buy more things, but something like eminent domain or some other decisions like that, it might be a reasonable, or corporate acquisitions, it might be a reasonable system. In elections, if we don't want to use money, how might we be able to get some of this cardinality? Well, one thing we could do is we could allow people to store their votes across elections. So imagine that there's state elections, local elections, national elections. Imagine you get each year 100 votes, and you can allocate them across different issues and whatever as you wish, right? That's going to force you to make trade-offs over things that you care a lot about and things you care less about. And that will allow for some of this cardinality. And in fact, what if you could store them across elections? So you're born with 1 million votes, and you can use them across your lifetime as you wish. Then, without having any money, we can still get basically cardinality. And in fact, you could combine these two systems by having the influence you have on any given issue be quadratic in the number of votes you have to spend, and then you could have both this and this system put together. Okay, so let me just wrap up the term. So this term we explored some of that, what I think are sort of the most basic trade-offs in the economic organization of a society. And my hope is that this led you to a better, more nuanced, and less ideological understanding of the trade-offs that our society faces when we choose different institutions. And in particular, I hope I gave you a way of sort of disaggregating rather than there just being capitalism or socialism. I hope this class helped you see both very particular institutions which constitute a capitalist society and institutions which constitute more of a socialistic society, and help give you a sense of how to quantify what the trade-offs are between those different types of institutions, rather than just seeing them as some ideological package of things that you're in favor of or against. And so let me just quickly review what I think are sort of like the core trade-offs between more capitalist-type institutions and more socialist institutions, and how we thought about the trade-offs between them. So one trade-off has to do with internalizing externalities and providing public goods and bads, right? And the trade-off there was basically the distortions from ignoring information that individuals have, right? Versus the flaws of any system that tries to extract that information from individuals. So we can have sort of an unregulated market system that's totally non-political, but then we're going to have all these distortions from externalities. Or we can try to get the information we need, but that requires either having these technical experts who are flawed, having a voting system which is flawed, or using the VCG system which is a total disaster, right? So that was a trade-off between a centralized and a decentralized system along that dimension. We had a trade-off in terms of redistributing income and providing social insurance. So on the one hand, if we provide lots of social insurance and redistribute lots of income, that helps deal with people's risks. But on the other hand, it provides a disincentive for people to earn more income, right? And that was the basic trade-off between socialism and capitalism. We talked about regulation or providing prizes versus allowing firms to exercise their market power. And there we traded off the static dead weight loss caused by monopoly versus incentives for entrepreneurship, creative destruction, and innovation, and cost reductions by firms. That's another basic trade-off between a regulated, more socialistic system and a more capitalist system. And we talked about the trade-off between competition policy against cartels and mergers versus the economies of scale that those mergers allow. And that's another trade-off between a very disaggregated competitive system and one that tries to take advantage of the economies of scale, as many more socialistic types of systems do. And the point is, all these trade-offs are pretty darn different from one another. And when you need to quantify them are different. So the truth is, it doesn't make any real sense for someone to be ideologically, in my view, in favor of capitalism or in favor of socialism. The truth is that there's a whole bunch of different things that one has to quantitatively think about and look at to think about all these different dimensions. And I hope that this course led you to a less ideological, more quantitative, and more detail-oriented way of thinking about the trade-offs involved in public policy. And that this will help you to overcome the challenges we saw by combining into one person the role of an expert and a voter, and help improve our world in that way. So, thanks a lot.